You're stupid, Lena. We could have met again, had fun if you didn't mind how we spent our time. Sasha, what are you saying? Are you joking? Lena looked at him skeptically. Sasha looked at her with a mocking glance. Listen, honestly, you're much better in bed than in life. What did you think, that I would marry you right away? Did you try to trap me with a pregnancy? Tears started to stream down Lena's face. I didn't try, Sasha. I really didn't try, but since God gave us our little one. Sasha interrupted her. Well, if God gave it to you, then go to your God. Let him raise and feed the child. Lena felt her world crumbling around her, so colorful and beautiful. No, it simply couldn't be. Sasha loved her, he read her poetry, said such beautiful words. Sasha, I don't understand. What? She started, but the guy raised his hands. Hallelujah. Did it finally sink in? It must be very difficult to live with such a slow brain. I'm not just leaving you. I also want to make sure you don't even try to get in my way. Got it? Here, get an abortion, and stop whining. Enough already. You should have thought earlier. Who are you? Are you even someone I would marry? And the child? Do you think I want a child with someone like you, like Lena? He said, barely audible, but Lena understood his words. You know, there are people, and then there's the gray mass, which lives in the swamp, and always will. That's what you are, part of the gray mass, stuck in a village swamp, said Sasha, throwing an envelope on her lap, and heading towards his car. Lena jumped up, wanting to run after him, to explain everything to him again, to tell him about their child, but Sasha had already gotten into the car and driven away. The girl looked at the envelope, picked it up, and opened it. Dollars spilled onto her lap. No, Sasha really understood everything. Right, he even prepared for the conversation. And he could have not shown up at all. She didn't know how much time had passed. She felt sick. Lena looked up, and there stood a man around 40, maybe a little older. She didn't recognize him immediately, but he recognized her. Wait, you're a student, he said. Oh, sorry, I didn't recognize you. Excuse me, I'll go. It was a professor. She couldn't remember his name because he joined the institute just this year, and Lena was already involved with Sasha, so she wasn't interested in anything else. She quickly turned from being an excellent student to being average because she didn't have time for studying. She stood up, took a few steps, and almost fell. The man managed to catch her. No, this won't do. Where do you live? He asked. In the dormitory, yes. It's the other end of the city, she replied. He looked at his watch. Yes, the metro is not working. Here's what, my dear girl, let me treat you to some tea. You're freezing. Honestly, Lena had no strength to resist, so she obediently leaned on his arm and suddenly remembered his name. Thank you, Nikolai Ivanovich. You remembered, huh? Well, that's good. What's your name? Lena, Elena. Well, let's go, Elena. My house is just over there. Lena looked around. The apartment was beautiful, not extravagant, just beautiful. Everything was in its place. Paintings, throws on the couch, heavy curtains. It was like stepping into the Middle Ages. Nikolai Ivanovich cleared his throat, correctly interpreting her gaze. You know, when your home is cozy, you don't feel loneliness as strongly. After mentioning loneliness, tears started to flow freely down Lena's face. Nikolai was taken aback. He understood, of course, that something had happened to the girl, most likely a failed love affair. Well, what else can happen at that age? But she cried so bitterly, as if life had ended. The younger generation had such intense love. And if not, perhaps the girl really lost someone. Anything is possible. He quickly sat Lena down on a chair. Let's have some tea. When Lena took her first sip, he asked, Elena, what happened to you after all? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, of course, but based on my experience, it becomes much easier when you talk about it. Lena looked at him and started talking, and she felt that it really became lighter, only she was getting more exhausted. By the end of her story, tears were freely streaming down her face. Nicolay decisively helped her up from the chair. This is the bedroom, make yourself comfortable. I'll sleep in the living room, and in the morning, we'll figure out how to proceed. Today, you shouldn't think about it anymore. You need a good, restful sleep, and not just you. Lena looked at him in surprise. Wow, it's so unusual to hear that, she thought. Someone barely knew about her child, yet he showed care. It was so unexpected and pleasant. She fell asleep as soon as her head touched the pillow. In the morning, she opened her eyes. Before she remembered everything, but when she did, she sat up abruptly in bed. What should I do? And now Nikolay Ivanovich too. The smell of coffee wafted in. Lena quickly got up, fixed her hair, and left the room. Oh, Elena, I was about to wake you up. I thought you would have to have a cold breakfast. Thank you, Nikolay said. I'm not hungry, Lena replied. Of course, I'm not hungry. Sit down and eat, he invited. Lena smiled gratefully and sat on the edge of the chair. Nikolay looked at her. I would like to have a serious conversation with you. I believe my offer should interest you, he said. 25 years had passed. Hold on, Alexander Igorovich, we're almost there, Sasha said, wincing in pain. The doctor had told him that if he didn't have the surgery on time, things could end very badly, but he didn't listen. And now his personal doctor had arrived 2 minutes earlier than the ambulance. Alexander Igorovich, all right, I understand everything. There is only one doctor I trust, who works wonders. She works at Missions Clinic. I'm calling her now, Nikolay said. Alexander reclined in his chair. It was very unpleasant to realize that his life would now be in the hands of an unfamiliar person, especially a woman. He didn't quite trust the fair sex after his beloved wife not only tried to run away from him, but also take everything he had, and she almost succeeded. Thankfully, his children intervened in time. Now he was alone, not old, wealthy, but utterly lonely. Of course, he tried not to show how much it weighed on him. He had to maintain appearances. When my parents were alive, things were simpler. Then they went on vacation. They wanted to see underdeveloped countries, you know. That's when you caught some fever while the doctors were figuring things out. Before we knew it, they were gone. It was another reason to avoid medicine. The ulcer was discovered unexpectedly. It was there, but it didn't bother me much ethically. The doctor insisted on tests and surgery, but I kept postponing it. Now it's waiting soon, and I don't know if I'll ever return to this office again, Sasha mused. By the time they brought him to the hospital, he had almost lost consciousness. They immediately took him to the operating room. Fortunately, his doctor came with him, carrying all his paperwork. Sasha even attempted to pray, but he didn't know any prayers, so he just started to look around. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw white shadows of the medical staff upon who his life depended. At some point, they all gathered around the table where he lay. Sasha felt and then sensed the mask on his face and made eye contact with the doctor. She approached, presumably the one they had talked about, and he immediately recognized those eyes. He barely managed to whisper, "Elena Arkadyevna." "As always, top-notch," Lena said. "Yes, stop it. Usually, we've gone through so many of these ulcers, but not today. I observed the work of some computer, not a single unnecessary movement or word. Soon, we'll set a record together. We'll have the fastest and highest quality surgery. Lena smiled. Do you have a cigarette, colleague? She asked, looking at her with wide eyes. But you don't smoke, Lena replied. I don't smoke, but sometimes, when I need to calm my nerves, I indulge, she said. They went outside, and the man handed her a cigarette. He lit it himself, then asked, Am I right to assume that the person we operated on is someone you know? That's right, you know, I hated him for many years. But it shouldn't have been you operating on him. It shouldn't have, Lena said. Lena, I urgently need to go to work abroad. Such an opportunity comes once in a lifetime, but I might miss it because that clinic prefers to hire married people. I'm offering you to marry me. It will be counted as your practical experience. You'll give birth, and I'll give the child a name. Believe me, I won't harm you, and you'll have everything you could dream of. In 3 years, we'll return, and then you can decide whether to divorce me or leave everything as it is, Nikolay proposed. Lena expected anything but such an offer. Nikolay said that she had 1 week to consider, and they needed that time to get to know each other well. They spent a lot of time walking, talking, sitting in restaurants, and Lena couldn't understand why such a wonderful person wasn't married. And Nikolay prayed for one thing, that she wouldn't refuse him. His trip was already planned, and whether he was married or not didn't matter. They became true husband and wife after a year, never once doubting their decision. Lena had no regrets about her choice. 5 years later, they had a daughter and a son. Lena matured instantly because she felt responsible for her sister. Several days passed, and Lena tried not to show up in Sasha's ward. But she had to because the patient specifically requested to see his attending physician. You called for me? Lena asked when she entered the room. Lena, how long will you pretend that we don't know each other? Sasha smiled and attempted to hold her hand. She gently stepped back and asked, If these are all the questions for me, then I'll go. Wait. Come on, why do you remember only what happened so many years ago? Things are different now. Time has changed, and we have changed. You're married. Lena looked at him in astonishment, and yet he wasn't joking. He genuinely believed he was still of interest to her. She smiled. I'm sorry, Alexander Igorovich, but that's none of your business. She turned around and walked toward the door. He even sat up on the bed. Understand this, I will still achieve what I need. Every day in the office, I achieve everything with enviable regularity, and she carries them all on her shoulders as nurses on duty. Sasha saw all of this, but he couldn't talk to Lena, so he decided to ambush her on the street. Luckily, we were allowed to walk. He didn't bother finding out anything about her, it didn't matter. He felt that right now it was only him and her, and there couldn't be anyone else. While he stood and watched the birds, sparrows were fighting and chirping loudly. Sasha thought, just like humans, but he couldn't watch the scene until the end. A white Lexus rolled up almost to the porch, and the sparrows scattered. A minute later, Lena came out. Lena, she turned to him, Sash, what do you want? Lena, let's talk. Give me a little of your attention. You have 2 minutes, and you've become so cruel. Lena, listen. When I saw you, I realized that nothing has changed. I still like you the same. I think we should give it another try. You're not interested in it. Lena was surprised. Well, you loved me so much. You just need to remember. Sash, leave me alone. I really hoped that I would never see you again in my life. Lena wanted to leave, but Sasha grabbed her hand. Lena, you don't understand what you're refusing. The door of the white SUV slammed shut, and a young man appeared next to them. Sasha froze in surprise and let go of Lena's hand. It was himself, only younger. "Mom, any problems?" the young man asked. "Oh no, son, everything is fine," the mother replied. The man felt a little unwell. "Let's go." "Yes, let's go already, Dad. Jenny's been waiting for us at the restaurant." Sasha slowly sat down on the step. Something told him that no attempt would succeed anymore. The young man helped his mother into the car and then returned to Sasha. He looked at him attentively, and a wave of hope rose in Sasha that the young man would show great interest. Why are they so similar? And Sasha confessed everything. "Alexander Igorovich, you see, I am very curious, and that's why I've known who you are to me for a long time. I kindly ask you not to approach our family, otherwise I will have to prevent you from doing so. Goodbye." The car had long driven away, but Sasha still sat there. Well, is this happiness? Pockets full of money, and the contempt of someone who shouldn't exist in this world, because Sasha decided so. If you enjoyed the story, please support me with a thumbs up. It's just one action for you, but it means a lot to me. Goodbye.